And I'm Ben. Let's see, I didn't check the audio. Usually it's correct. It is. Hooray. Should turn this down a little. Doesn't need to be that much up when Karen's not here. That looks good. We're going to have an unusual stream today. If you're watching on YouTube, you can watch live if you go to twitch.tv/, what am I, Trump? / I've a lot of trouble saying twitch.tv/. I don't know why. Anyway, twitch.tv/GM Benjamin Feingold. I stream every day, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I stream at 9 p.m. Eastern. I stream at 8 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday. Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern. It's all Eastern. Sunday at 5 and Saturday at 6. And I do different stuff every day. Saturday and Sunday, I usually play subs. And the other days, I give chess lectures and such, and so forth. I did a little cleaning when I was here. I had a lot of Perrier bottles. So if I have to leave, I have this full Perrier. Anything else I can put in my chair? I have a Perrier cap. I guess that'll do. I got some other stuff around here. Garbage bags. Chess Life magazine. The one with all the streamers on it. Yeah. All right. Hopefully they make another issue, like as an apology issue or something, and then they put the actual streamers on it. Take off the people who don't stream. But they probably won't do that. All right. So today's going to be deposit charged on bottled water in Georgia. Now, if they don't know what that is. So today, we're going to have more of a teaching stream that's, I mean, extemporaneous is a nice way of putting it. Because I think when you have an extemporaneous kind of talk, you have some idea what you're going to talk about and maybe some notes. But I'm just doing this off the cuff. And I will answer questions. A lot of the reasons people don't get better at chess is they don't know how to get better at chess. And even when they're advised by players that are stronger than them on how to get better, they don't listen to advice and they just keep banging their head against the wall. And some people don't want to get better at chess. They like what they're doing, which is fine. You know, some people sacrifice all their pieces and maybe they win 1 game out of 10 doing that with some nice checkmate, and the other 9 they're down like a lot of pieces, and that's fine with them because they like to win brilliantly. Some people trade every move, and no matter what you tell them, you can't stop them. And a lot of people spend 100% of their time studying the opening, which is, you know, that's like 2% of chess. So obviously, if you do things incorrectly that won't help you get better at chess, you're not going to get better at chess. Anyway, the point of this stream is to help you get better. And again, most people don't listen. They just do what they do and they don't get better. So I don't know. Occasionally, people do listen and they gain 1,000 rating points. And I have more than one student like that. Trying to learn, subscribe to Tier 2. Well, I could end the stream now because a Tier 2 sub, that's financially very beneficial. Yeah. Okay, so the number one way to get better is to play a lot. The slower you play, the better it is for your improvement. Some people don't like to play slowly. They like to play 1-minute chess and 10-second chess and 30-second chess and 3-minute chess. And they would rather play 100 games a day and have fun than play like 2 games a day and then study them for 3 hours. They don't want to do that. So obviously, if your goal is to get better, but you don't want to lose the fun, then you have to do a little of both. Once you have no fun at chess and you're studying a lot, now you're doing a good job. Aussie Kitty subscribed. All right, go Aussie Kitty. Okay, so there's 3 parts to chess. There's calculation, there's understanding, and there's knowledge. Calculation is when you calculate a variation, usually incorrectly, and the further you analyze, the more incorrect it is. That's of some importance. The other thing that's important is knowledge. Knowledge is you memorized a chess game, you memorized an opening trap, and you could show me. You remembered. And you'll never forget. Okay, except you will. Or maybe you know Philidor's position, you know the Lucena position, you know some pawn breakthrough, and you could set it up and give a chess lesson. That's your knowledge. Then there's understanding. For example, let's say you had an empty chessboard and I put king and rook versus king. And you were like, well, that's a win. King and rook beats a king. And I'm like, right. And then your friend is like, a king and rook beats a king? How would you do that? Well, you understand and he doesn't. Now, it doesn't mean you have the knowledge. Okay? It could be if I said, show me how to win, you're like, I don't know. I know it's a win. I understand it's a win. I just can't do it. Or, oh yeah, it's easy to do. So you have the knowledge and the understanding. Calculation not as important, but some. And if you have all three, then you can be a good chess player. And what a lot of people do is they just spend 99% of their time studying some opening variation that doesn't happen very often. And obviously, if you could learn one opening and somehow you had the same color every game, and somehow that opening happened every game, then you would play the first 10 moves pretty reasonably. And then the next 10, 20, 30, 40 moves, you haven't improved your game because you just study the one opening. So it's good to play chess and then see what you like instead of asking somebody what you like. And a lot of people ask me strange questions. Those questions start with, is this opening good for a beginner? I mean, moves are good unless they lose. So you play what you like, and then the opening happens, that happens. So if you want to have white in a Sicilian every game, and you play e4 because you like the Sicilian, and then your opponents never play c5, that knowledge didn't really help you. And if you play lots of chess, as I recommend, you'll notice some openings happen more often than others, and you should look at your games and see what you do wrong first and try to not do that wrong. So let's say everybody plays the French against you because that's the kind of people you know. Maybe they watch Geary videos, I don't know. And then, the engine says on move 7, you're always worse with white. Well, then you got to figure out why that's happening. You have to find some lines you like with white and then study them and play them and study them and play them and study them and play them until you don't like them anymore. Then study something else. So I played d4 most of my life. And now that I'm not playing very seriously in tournaments anymore, for more than one reason, I like to play e4. And the main reason is I never played e4. And I like to play gambits when I'm playing on the internet because I never played gambits. So I'm just having fun. I'm playing the Danish and the Scotch gambit and the Goring gambit and the Smith-Morra. And I'm losing on move 5, but then maybe I'm winning on move 10. And obviously, the faster you play, if you play 10-second chess or 30-second chess, which isn't really good for improving your chess, a lot of people are like, that's stupid, you're stupid, this stream is stupid, 10-second chess is stupid, that's not chess. I like typing the word stupid. It's true that 10-second chess, if you play it, you're playing at a lower level than if you played a 2-hour game. However, different skills come into the fray. And obviously, if 10-second chess wasn't chess and it had no relation to chess, I wouldn't do well. I would be like you and I would score 50% because it's not chess. However, I score approximately 85 to 95% against the people that I normally score 85 to 95% against when I play 1 minute, 3 minute, and 5 minute. Okay, I'm not playing the best players in the world on my stream because they're not watching my stream and they're not participating. But you guys are, and I score the same against you in 10-second that I do in 3 minute because it is chess, it's just different skill. And the calculation skill doesn't matter, and the knowledge skill doesn't matter. The understanding skill matters, and I understand that I have to pre-move every move, and some of you don't do that. And a lot of my 10-second games, I'm down several pieces when I win on time. Several. Because I understand that that doesn't matter. And you have to understand the time control, what your opponent's good at, what you're good at, what your weaknesses are. Then you can get better at chess. Playing a lot of chess, analyzing your games, and seeing what your performance is, and getting positions you like, that's one way to get better. Now, obviously, what you need to do to get better the most quickly is to play slow chess, so you have time to figure out like what you're doing. It's more interesting to play blitz and bullet because there's more checkmates and there's more blunders and there's more winning on time. And perhaps if you played perfectly and your opponent played perfectly and it was a 45 move draw, that wouldn't make chess so inviting to you because you want to watch, Carlsen and Nakamura sack all their pieces and stuff. Then there's less, there's less draws. Now, the reason those guys are good is because they have understanding. So the people in the world who are top 10, top 20 in the world, obviously positions that they get, I move 20, 30, 40. They don't know those positions, but they understand what to do. And if their calculation is good and they understand what to do and they get lucky and get a position they have knowledge, they get a rook and pawn they already studied. They get something then they can play virtually perfectly, and that's why in the World Championship we see 12 draws out of 12 games because they're not making as many mistakes as we are. So I want to discuss, and then I'll take questions after. I'll look at the chat and see what the questions are. One thing I like to do is say things like two bishops and never play f3 and this never play, was this f6? What is this? Yeah. And, whatever. Always play king b1. And the reasons for those things is those are good rules of thumb that are more often than not correct. And a lot of people are like, well, why are two bishops good? And actually, you have to realize why a rook is better than a bishop and why a rook isn't better than a bishop. So a rook's better than a bishop in theory because a rook can go to all 64 squares and a bishop can go to half of them. So a rook's obviously better than a bishop. A bishop's better than a rook because the rook can't move. And probably the biggest issue lower rated players have in improving their game, which is you guys, is piece activity. You guys understand who's ahead in material. You're like, well, I have a pawn more than you. Now, when I say that, often you're not right. I like who if I go up to a 1700 who's playing a blitz game on move 30 and I stop the clock and I say, what's the material? I mean, if you're a grandmaster, you say it's equal, I'm up a pawn, I have a queen for a rook and a knight. If you ask a low-rated player, they're like, well, I don't know. Like, just a second. And then they might give the wrong answer. All right. But you understand, like, what a queen looks like, what a rook looks like, and you understand if you have one and they don't. Now, one thing that I can't get low-rated players to do correctly, so I give up. I give up. Okay, I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to make something up that's sort of silly, because I'm silly. Okay, here. All right, and then here. Just making it up. Okay. I like the way the engine says, like, black is slightly better. All right. It's played silly every move. Okay. So if I ask a high-rated player, what's the material situation, they'll look and they'll tell me. If I ask a low-rated player, they can't tell me. They could look for their whole life. And they're like, I don't know. They don't even understand the question most of the time. So I want you to tell me what white has that black doesn't have, what black has that white doesn't have. You see what I'm saying? So if you count the pawns, you see that white has 7 pawns and black has 6 pawns. So white's up a pawn. If you count the bishops and the knights, black has a bishop and a knight that white doesn't have. If you count the rooks, black has a rook that white doesn't have, and white has a queen that black doesn't have. So based on everything I just said, if you were a high-rated player, you would say white has a queen and a pawn for a rook, bishop, and knight, because that's what happened. So queen and a pawn for rook, bishop, and knight, and a rook, bishop, and knight should be better than a queen, and the engine says this is equal because I just made some nonsense moves. But the fact that low-rated players have a lot of trouble with that, saying, I have a queen and a pawn for rook, bishop, and a knight. They're just like, I don't know, there's pieces on the board and I have some and they don't. Man, now the engine says it's all zeros. Yeah, engines are weird. They try to make it all zeros. They try. They're like, every position's all zeros. Ridiculous. Okay, so one thing you have to do is know who's ahead. And you guys are pretty good at that. And by pretty good at that, you're not very good at it. But that's the best that you are of all the things that you do, is you know what the material situation is. You could technically figure it out even if you don't know. You can look at the board and it's right there. Now, there's a famous chess player in St. Louis named Mike Kummer. And, you know, I've been taught my whole life, and I've been teaching my whole life, you look on the board to see who's ahead and who's behind. Because there could be 10,000 pieces off the board from, 4,000 different chess sets. So you can't look off the board and there's pieces from 5 different sets and but that's what Mike Kummer does. If Mike Kummer, while he's playing a blitz game, he doesn't know what's going on materially, so he looks off the board and he separates the pieces and he's like, okay, I have this for this. And it's possible on chess.com, and I never look at this, but I'm sure you guys do. It shows you the pieces here. It shows you, queen, it tells you like who's ahead and who's behind and all that point-wise. Okay, so that's fascinating except for one thing. All right, so that's knowing who's ahead in material you guys are good at. Now, what you're not good at is understanding piece activity. And piece activity is very important. So if I have this position, which I'm making up, for example, okay, now this piece is active, and these pieces can become active. You move them. They're active. These pieces are not active, and I can't get them active. Okay? Terrible. So the fact that your pieces aren't very good is bad. A rook is a rook unless it can't move. And that's why in the opening and middle game, you usually want knights and bishops over rooks because rooks can't move. And then I always say sacrifice the exchange. And then in the end game, if I had a rook and my opponent had a knight, then I would win because I'm up the exchange. But in opening and middle game, your rook can't move. It's not active. It's not important. Now in this position, it's black's turn to move. And the engine really hates black's position because these pieces suck. And when your pieces suck, sometimes it's not your fault. And if you don't believe me, you can ask Robin Williams. And he'll say, it's not your fault. It's not, okay. But actually, sometimes when your pieces are bad, it is your fault. And you're like, well, I had to do that. You didn't have to sacrifice material. You had to make your pieces bad. Okay, don't make your pieces bad. Don't do that. Okay, so if you're in a rook and pawn ending, activate your rook. If you're in a king and pawn ending, activate your king. Don't say, well, I don't have to activate my pieces. I still have them. So that's not a good way to look at chess. Let's see. Very suspicious. My texts are funny. Rabbit Ham subscribed. I wish I could see. That would be better. I will take a small break to read the chat, and I'll shake my head derisively. Still sexy, that's correct. It's worth learning a couple of key things to avoid the fried liver. Okay? Yeah, don't listen to the chat. I beat you in 10 seconds. I'm not the best. My best win was against you. Magnus Carlsen is the blind bugger. I'm the best. You were wrong. I legit watched someone live play Title Tuesday last week. What? No one tell me. Okay. I beat Magnus. All right, why am I reading the chat? What do I think about Tall? Oh. Would you say chess.com Blitz? I have a reasonable understanding of chess. Chess Dojo Live is rating with a party of 33. Let's see, who's in Chess Dojo Live? That's, what's his name and those other guys. Yeah, those are my guys. Jesse Cry, maybe Proust, maybe I'm making that up. Maybe Kavutsky, but I'm definitely making that up. We'll just say it's Jesse, because, Jesse's the only one that matters. All right. Let's see. And then there. Oh, okay. I'm going to stop reading the chat now. Oh, that was terrible. All right. Boo, chat. Jesse's girl's also there. Yeah. I asked Janice Joplin who her favorite grandmaster was, and she said it was Jesse Cry. I was surprised. All right, go Chess Dojo Live. All right, back to my lecture. So, one thing you want to do in the opening, instead of memorizing openings that you can't remember and never happen, is get all of your pieces out and try to move something different. So, a lot of people have tunnel vision, and when they make a move, they stare at that move for some reason. Ooh, look at me, I'm the deep one. So once you move something, the strategy of chess is to move something else. Okay, now am I in an analysis board? How do I get rid of? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so notice how even though I'm playing the London by accident, okay, because I'm moving. Ooh, look at that! I'm moving a different piece every move. I should have castled like this way. That would have been better. Okay. So notice how I move something different every move, and then I'm pretty happy. And, a lot of people when they play chess, they sort of forget to move other things. And then, Morphe's rolling over in his grave, or grave robbers are there, I don't know. So you want to move a different piece every move if you can. And has to do with piece activity, is you want, Now, the main thing in chess that separates people's strength is when you get really good at chess, way better than me, you're good at figuring out what your opponent wants to do and not letting them do it. And what I mean is, most people have a plan or an idea or make a threat, but they don't see their opponent doing the same thing when it has the same level of difficulty. And this is a big issue. Obviously, if your opponent's threatening mate in 17 and you don't see it, nobody's going to yell at you. Or maybe your mom will. But if you know some tactical trick and you teach that tactical trick and you show that tactical trick and you and the tactical trick are like, "That, son," and then your opponent does the same trick against you, that doesn't make a lot of sense. How come you know the trick when you do it, but don't know it when they do it? And that has to do with the way that you're thinking and with your understanding that chess is a game with two players, not just you. So if you spent more time thinking about what your opponent was doing, okay. Now, let me show you a trap. What did I do wrong? I can't play here? Damn, I guess not. All right. I pushed reset board and I still can't do it? Damn. I'm not as good at chess as I thought, I guess. Legal moves only. I can't move. Oh, okay, because I had it set for black. I didn't do that, but I'm innocent. Okay, let's look at the Carol Khan for a second, just so I can get a position I want to show you. Okay. Notice here in check, because you're in check. And if you want to get better at chess, Remember the three things I taught you: knowledge, understanding, calculation. If you have any of those, then you won't blunder here. Now, what a lot of people do, okay, is they say, I'm in check. And some people don't know they're in check, so they go here, and they're like, what's going on? Oh, I'm in check. Okay. All right. So when you realize you're in check, if your analysis is, I have to get out of check, well, you could play bishop e2, queen e2, bishop e3, knight e2, king f1, king d2, and bishop e6. You have a lot of ways to get out of check. And if the only thing you think about is getting out of check and don't see what else is happening in the board, okay, now, for me, I know this position, I have knowledge. So I don't have to see the right move. I already know this position, okay? Because it's early in the game. It's an opening that I've played with Black, the Carol Khan, and this was in a book that I read when I was like 6, like this particular trap. Now, some of you don't have that knowledge because you don't have Carol Khan books. You've never played either side of the Carol Khan. You've never seen this position. You've never watched my stream. So you're just like, I'm in check and I'm getting out of check. So you don't know the position. Then there's calculation. If I play knight e2 or bishop e3, which are very logical looking, what can Black do? Are you calculating? And most people don't calculate because they're playing blitz and bullet on the internet instead of slow chess. The third thing you can do is have understanding. And understanding is usually what I'm teaching more than anything. And you have to understand that your bishop on c4 is a loose piece. It's a minor piece on the 4th and 5th rank that is not protected. Those are pieces that you lose, and you should have realized it when you played bishop c4. Am I going to lose that piece? The answer is no. After here, check, now you might lose that piece. If you play knight e2 or bishop e3, queen b4 check wins your bishop. And if you fall into that, that's okay. Just don't keep falling into it every game in different positions where you have pieces on the 4th and 5th rank and you keep hanging them. And obviously, if they're not defended, now here's a good example of how grandmasters will avoid that kind of thing. Okay, now either here or in the next 3 moves, even here, but okay, it's very common that white plays here. It might happen now, it might happen next move, it might happen on move 8 or 9 or 10, but it's very unlikely that on move like 11 or 12, that bishop's still there because that bishop's loose. So a rook can attack it, a queen can attack it, a knight can attack it, a pawn can attack it. And here, you don't really care if it gets attacked because it's defended 7,000 times. So if a queen attacks it, you don't care. If the knight attacks it, okay. And now your bishop's safe and you can continue. And if you lose this bishop a lot and you're like, oh yeah. All right. Now obviously, in the England Gambit, for example, there's nothing wrong with bishop f4, but if you didn't see queen b4 check, you should ask yourself, why didn't I see queen b4 check? And again, if you calculate, you should see it. If you understand, you'll see it. And if you have knowledge, because you know the opening, you already know about this. So if you have any of those things, you'll see queen b4 check. Some people aren't calculating because they're playing 1 minute and 3 minute chess. They're just moving fast. Some people don't have understanding because they've played 10 chess games, and I told you to play 10,000 chess games. And some people don't have any knowledge, and one of the reasons they don't have knowledge isn't because they didn't have the knowledge. A lot of times they forget because you're trying to memorize a lot of stuff and you can't remember. And sometimes you just don't know. You're just like, yeah, I don't know that. Okay, and knowledge is good when you're doing opening traps because you already know them. And they're, also if you're teaching a kid chess and you're showing them this, and the reason you're showing them this is you want them to mate somebody, that's the wrong reason to show them. The right reason to show them is you don't want them to get mated in 4 moves. And I asked my students when I was teaching, if somebody does this against you, what are you going to do about that? And they answer. And then I said, if they do this, what are you going to do about that? And they answer. And usually they give some good answers. Some of their answers aren't as good. And I tell them, not only did you have specific knowledge about these foreign move mate positions, you also have to have understanding. You have to understand when your opponent moves their queen out the first 6 moves of the game, they're being serious. Their queen wants to take stuff. When they play knight d4, e4, knight f3, it's not clear they want to take anything. They just want to play those moves. But if your opponent moves his queen out, it could be because he wants to take something, not because he likes moving his queen out. He likes when his queen takes stuff. So that's the understanding that when your opponent moves their queen out, you got to be scared. Even if their move is bad, the game could end. Okay, another thing I want to teach today, I tried to read the chat once, but it was too absurd. The other thing I want to teach today is thinking about what your opponent's going to do more than thinking about what you're going to do. And learning from that if something bad happens or potentially if it happens. So obviously, what most people do is they're like, I won, and then yay, and then they do cartwheels. Okay. Now, obviously, if you're a stronger grandmaster than me, you're analyzing your games and trying to figure out what you can gain from that experience. And even the best players in the world, they want to get better. As Dmitry Gurevich once told me, you don't stay the same in chess. Either you get better or you get worse. If you're just like, I'm 26-30 FIDE, I'm going to go to sleep, I'm going to wake up and watch TV, I'm going to go to sleep, I'm going to wake up and read the newspaper. You guys don't know what a newspaper is. I'm going to go to sleep, I'm going to wake up and play Fortnite. And then in a few weeks, I'm going to go play in a tournament, and I'm 26-30, so I'm going to perform 26-30. If people who are lower rated than you are using that time to improve their chess game, then you're getting worse. They're going up and you're not going up. So, these kids who are trying to get better at chess, the teenagers, they're getting better at chess. And older guys who aren't trying to get better at chess because it's time consuming and the reward isn't very great at that point, they're getting worse. The truth hurts. And obviously, if you took the best players in the world from the 1980s and 1990s, and we talk to them now, Kramnik, Anand, Topalov, Gelfand, Ivanchuk, Kasparov, and I said, okay, in the last 6 months, show me all the new theoretical novelties and what everybody's doing. And some of them would, and some would be like, look, dude, I don't play in tournaments anymore. Go away, right? And, that's, if you ask Geary and Carlson and Nepo and Dubov, okay, then you get some answers. They're not going to tell you because they're going to tell you they don't know, but they know the answer. So the older you get, the less interested you are with what's going on currently because that's just tons and tons and tons of work. And those guys aren't working so much because Dubov wants to become the world champion. Geary wants to become the world champion. Ding wants to become the world champion. Caruana wants to become the world champion. But guys in their 50s, for the most part, don't say, oh yeah, I'm going to be world champion in 3 years, so I study 10 hours a day. That's not what's happening. All right. It could be happening, but it's not happening. All right. Now, since most of my games are on the internet against you guys, I got nothing in the opening. I know stuff from the 80s and 90s, and I forgot it. Okay, but it doesn't matter because that's a very small part of chess, is memorizing opening theory. Very small. On the other hand, if your rating is 2,800 FIDE and you play another guy who's 2,800 FIDE and you have 20 draws in a row, you probably would like to beat them sometimes and be better than them. And if studying openings 10 hours a day and they study openings 3 hours a day, in 3 or 4 or 5 months, maybe you'll beat them because on move 19 you got them. They didn't look at that move and you did. So that might be worth it to be better than your compatriot and be the world champion by doing a lot of chess work. And that's the weakness that a lot of these super GMs have is they're not booked up to the teeth as much as the guy who's booked up to the teeth more than they are. Okay? Now, obviously, for you guys, that doesn't matter, but you think it matters. But it doesn't matter. So if you got novelties ready on move 19 and you're rated 1500, you're never going to play those novelties. Instead, your opponent's going to play some silly move on move 8, and you're going to like hang a queen and be like, what? So if I'm playing some 1400 who's booked to the teeth, and I'm black, and I'm playing a 3-minute game, and I play knight f6, okay, and they take my bishop, and I check, and they sit there confused, okay, now white's better in this position, but they don't know the position, and they're confused, and I threw them off their game. Now they got to make their own moves, and their own moves aren't very good, so I win. Okay, and I could do that. I could play a5 on move 1, and you're out of prep. You're done. You're done, son. You got nothing. Okay, now you got to make your own moves. So you always got to make your own moves at some point. And obviously, if you're 2800 and your opponent plays a5, you might beat them because you're 2800, and you're like, oh, I'm already doing great. Maybe I'm already winning. And you play like a 2800, and then Lako and Yasser are like, what the hell is that? Okay, and then Gotham Chess is, drunk on the floor somewhere, I guess. All right, he's like, that looks good. All right, so in this position and in all positions, you got to be able to just play chess. And if you say, I lost because I didn't know the opening, that's not why you lost. That's not what happened. Okay, you lost because you don't play chess as well as your opponent does. Okay, you're not falling into opening traps if you don't know the opening. You're just getting positions you don't know and you're not confident. And I like positions where neither one of us knows what to do and we have to use our brains and play chess. And then when I lose, that's because they're better than me. I don't want to play 13 moves of theory and my opponent knows theory to move 17 and I'm using an hour on my clock between moves 13 and 17 and he's blitzing it out. I don't want to get in that kind of situation. And maybe when I was 20 I did, but now I don't. So now I'm not going to play any deep theoretical line unless I've known it for 35 years. Okay, then maybe I will. Yeah. All right, we have a lot of viewers. No donations, but a lot of viewers. That's better. Yeah, Bobby Fish is pretty good. That's right. I do remember Weaver. That's right. Yeah, I remember him. Yeah. Let's see. I'm making another mistake reading the chat. Terrible. 200 centidues from Reptile the Third. Yeah. Not hanging your pieces would be good. 99 cents for Dharma. Hooray. Yeah. You struggle with keeping your opponent's knights out of the center? I do have advice. I've said this on more than one stream, okay? This pawn structure, where the pawns are next to each other, is better than when they're not next to each other, okay? And a lot of people are just like, roar. So they, so they're like, here and here and, roar. Basic Pratt gifted 10 subs, thank you. Okay, now there's nothing wrong with that, but obviously you're giving away the white squares, so your opponent can put things on the white squares, okay? And then you're not controlling the white squares. All right. So in this position, black is winning according to the engine because my pieces have good squares and you can't really do anything about it. Okay, conversely, that's not, reset board doesn't work. I'm pushing reset board. Why doesn't that work? All right, I cleared the board, then I reset it. I showed you. You want your pawns next to each other. There's an analogy that I've been making for 30 years. And when I make the analogy, people just stare at me and they try to figure if they should have me committed. Okay? Because they don't understand the analogy. I understand the analogy. That's all that matters. So in Monopoly, which I don't play, if you're building houses and hotels on your properties, you can't build them unevenly. That's like having a bad pawn structure. I call that the, what's this called? The Weird Al plays it. The, what's that called? Come on, somebody in the chat. Accordion. I call it the accordion pawn structure when, your pawns are like this. Okay, that's not good. Okay, your pawn structure should be your pawns next to each other. When your pawns are next to each other, your opponent can't move anywhere. When your pawn structure is not next to each other, then your opponent can move because you're not controlling those squares anymore. And that actually explains like the Alekhine, it explains why Black is doing this. He's like, come to Papa, right? And he's like, haha, now I can attack these pawns. All right, and then Albert retired from chess, so nobody plays that anymore. Very funny. All right, let's see. Anybody else give any accordion? Morphe. All right, go Morphe. Right. Now, people overvalue opening preparation because they see grandmasters analyze. They think grandmasters are better than them at chess, usually the case. And so when grandmasters say something, they're like, yeah, that's what I got to do. So, if Nigel Short says, I played a novelty on move 14, and then I beat Ivanchuk, then you're like, I got to play a novelty on move 14. Then I'll beat grandmasters. Okay, that's... When grandmasters beat each other, it's not the same reason you guys beat each other. To become at that level, you have to minimize your mistakes. And when I teach chess, that's all I care about. And as a consequence, my students don't like my lessons. I don't get hired to teach at chess camps because that's not what people want to hear. Okay? They want me to show them mate and 10. They want me to make them tactical wizards. They want me to show them the refutation of the Najdorf. And they want me to show them rook and pawn endings, and you play perfectly every move, and you're the best on earth. Okay? But getting good at chess is minimizing your mistakes. And so if you watch other sports on television, basketball, football, baseball, soccer, whatever, some mistakes are tiny and some are big. And the big mistakes, it's hard to recover from them. And the worst is chess. That's the worst. The worst. And I always give the same kind of example. Okay, I make a good move for white and I make a bad move for black. And I can keep doing it. And I can do it for many, 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 many moves. Also many. And I'll get to a position. All right, here's a good example. Yeah. Okay, white's up 6.4. White's made 9 very reasonable moves, and black's made 9 moves that are not reasonable. Okay? So if you had a chess coach, he would, he's some kind of, bug, and he would go, good. That's your chess coach. Then you play queen takes pawn, and the rook is trapped. And you're like, yay, I'm winning because I'm trapping his rook. And the guy goes here, and you're like, oh, that's right, I forgot about that. Now you've gone from plus 6.4, and now black is up 11.3. So you made one bad move, and your opponent made all bad moves, and now you're losing because your one bad move was worse. So there's different kinds of mistakes you can make, and the ones that are large, like queen takes b7, you can never do that. If you do that 5 times a game, those kinds of mistakes, you have to do them 4, and then 3, and then 2, and then once a month, and then once a year, and then once a decade, and then never. Now, once you do never, now we can get you better at other parts of the game. In chess, you can't blunder pieces and go, oh, that's right. And if you do that, you have to minimize that. Okay? For example, I can't find my iPhone. Oh, no. Okay? That's never happened to Karen except for one thing. Or Karen's driving. Oh, no, I hit somebody. But yesterday I hit 2 people, so one's better. Okay? When Karen's driving, I've never seen her hit anybody. When I'm driving, I never hit anybody. Hitting people's bad. Losing your iPhone's bad, but then she gets some app and she finds her iPhone. or she fixes the problem by getting a whole new iPhone. Okay, that actually hasn't happened as far as I know, but so some mistakes are worse than other ones. Okay, so in chess, being better than you were means you minimize your mistakes. I don't care if you see mate in 5. I care if you hang your queen. And to minimize mistakes, you have to have less pieces hanging on the 4th and 5th rank. Never hanging. Never. And when you lose a piece, you have to realize the further your piece is away from you, the more likely you're going to lose it. Okay? So in this position, if you did no calculation and no understanding and didn't even know the position and just said, which white piece is closest to black? And I said, there's a bishop on g5. And you said, take the bishop on g5, I guess. Okay, because these pieces are far away. I'm not saying you will lose the bishop on g5, but if you lose a piece, it's going to be the bishop on g5. What a lot of people have trouble with, which I do not, but I used to, when I was like 6, is remembering things that happened to them. Now, I'm very fortunate that my rating is high and I can become a good chess player and I can to some level maintain it. Although obviously, not maintaining it too well, but better than some people. Because I remember bad things that happened to me and good things that happened to me. And if I can not let the bad things happen again and make the good things happen again, I can win a lot of chess games. And for a lot of you, not only have you not seen it before, but if you have seen it before, you forgot. If you forget blunders and you keep blundering and not punishing your opponent's blunders, then you can lose a lot. One thing that I show every stream, I've shown this at least 50 times, at least. What's funny is, if you watch my stream every day and you're like, I've never seen that. I had students like that. I would show them a puzzle. 2 weeks later, the same puzzle. Never saw that before. And I'm like, I showed it to you 2 weeks ago. They're like, I don't remember it. Then 2 weeks later, I'll show it again. They don't remember it. Or that story. Okay? I mean, it's hard to get better at chess if you don't remember anything. Gotta remember something. Right? And so just doing it over and over and over again would help. Okay? Now, somebody, you guys, yeah. You guys, on my stream right now, type, what move that white can play that's a blunder do I show you guys every stream in this position? What move? Bishop g5, that's right. Right, I show you this every stream. It's not just this position, it's many positions. This bishop's not defended, and it's on the 4th and 5th row, so you might lose it, and you do. Okay, because I play bishop takes check. You should analyze all checks. King takes, there's a check, and queen takes bishop is the next move, and the engine says black is winning. Black's not winning, he's just like a little winning, but that's good enough. Okay, so if you play bishop g5, what tends to happen at the lower levels of chess is your opponent like castles, and you go here, and neither one of you is the wiser. That's why you want to play good players, and they punish you, and you stop doing that. Hopefully. Sometimes you don't stop doing it. But yeah. And so I know that from knowledge, understanding, and calculation. Right? I already know the position. I understand that when pieces are here, the guy takes them. And I can calculate check and check because it's just check. I mean, I know it's check. Here, black has 20 moves. I can't analyze all of them. But after here, I'm only analyzing knight takes pawn. It's the only check and it's the only capture. If you play here and you're like, God, all right, your opponent had one capture and you missed it. Yeah, you got to see when your opponent can capture stuff. It could be you defended the thing that can be captured. And so you forget about it, but it's not really defended. You just think it's defended. Okay, here's an example that I'll just make up. Okay, so this is defended. You defended it on move 2, and now it's not defended. And you're just like, whatever, I defended that. Then when the guy goes here, you're like, no, I thought I defended that. The fact that this capture wins a pawn, and this capture wins a pawn, and it's check, and you missed both of them. If your opponent plays the trickiest move ever and beats you, that's fine. If your opponent plays queen takes pawn checkmate, and you're like, oh yeah. And the worst thing is when the move they just made has that intention. Okay, so I'll make up a position as we're talking. All right. Okay, in this position, I'm playing sort of silly. Black plays here. That has a threat. You should see the threats that your opponent's moves make. You should see checks and captures. In this position, black has 2 checks and captures. 1, 2. And there are no other checks, and there are no other captures. And your opponent just went here. So that's the one that should be the scariest, because you just went there. And if you go here, and you're like, oh, I didn't see that. That's exactly what you have to see. When your opponent has a check and or a capture, you have to see that. You have to. If your opponent goes here, and that's the winning move, all right, you didn't see it. If your opponent plays bishop takes queen, double check, winning a rook, and your queen, it's check, it's double check, it's a capture, it's your queen. Come on. Those are the moves you have to see. If you don't see them, if you often miss checks and you often miss captures, you have to change your thinking so that when your opponent does a check or a capture, you're not surprised, because those are the moves that crush you. Now, obviously, if you're running your pieces up the board and somebody like wins them, you shouldn't be surprised. This I showed a lot of my students, a long time ago. Okay. So if I told you black wins a piece, it's probably not one of these pieces. Okay, that you didn't move those. It's probably the pieces here that are, the bishop's not defended, it's in the zone, and you should look at check, and if you calculate it correctly, that does not win a piece. You should look at check. If you calculate that, that doesn't win a piece either, and there's no captures. So the third thing you do, which is very difficult, is look at threats. Here, there aren't a lot of threats. Okay, now I want to point out, if you go here, you're putting pressure on the knight, but if you could move again, this doesn't win a knight, it's defended. Okay, and I always tell my students, attack big pieces with little pieces. If you take a big piece and attack a little piece, that doesn't matter very much. Okay, if I play queen h5, attacking these 2 pawns, nobody cares about that. Nobody's taking pawns with queens. But what's littler than this is a pawn that you should analyze that forks 2 pieces. That's the move you should analyze. If you don't analyze it, it's your fault. You walked into a fork. You can't say you didn't see it. Now, let me refute you didn't see it. Okay? After d6, do you see it now? If you did this, would you be like, oh my God? You would. You'd be like, ah. You only didn't see it because you knew you could take the pawn, so you didn't do any analysis. And obviously this check wins the bishop, and obviously when things are on the 4th and 5th rank, and they're not defended, you could lose them. So you have to be careful when you're playing aggressively. It's sort of like in poker. You got to play aggressively, but be careful. Because, playing against Tom Dwyer, he's going to call. All right. You guys will ruin your position to not have double pawns. Okay. Here's an example. What's more common? E3, knight f3, bishop g5, or bishop d2? Well, if both players were under 800, probably bishop d2. If both players are over 1600, it ain't bishop d2. Okay, because nobody cares. I mean, some people even go here. This isn't something you should worry about. Black just moved a bishop out and pinned your knight. That's what you should be worried about. not him trading for a piece that can't move and losing a tempo. So that's not what you're worried about. Low-rated players are really worried about that. So they're going here, and I can't have my pawns messed up. I can't do it. Never double pawns. No, what a world. Okay, don't worry about your doubled and triple pawns. Don't worry about that. What you should worry about is who has more pieces. Now that you should worry about. One thing that confuses the audience, quite often I might add, I can't move for white again. Lower-rated players think that this wins a piece. Sometimes it does win a piece. Yeah. If you ever get checked and your bishop is attacked in this kind of scenario, this is always the right move if it's legal. If it's not legal, then yeah, you lost a piece. So that doesn't work. Similarly, something that happens in a lot of Queen's Gambits and other type positions, we'll do a Botvinnik, because the Botvinnik's cool. All right. When a bishop is pinning a knight and a pawn's attacking the knight, and there's billions of those positions, you always go here and here. You always do. It's just, I mean, whether you know the position or not, that's how you're going to save your piece. That's a standard, you got, it doesn't look good, but you can still, and I guess the McCutcheon is like that too, right? I don't play either side of the McCutcheon, but in fact, I proved I didn't by playing e5, proving I don't play the McCutcheon. Okay, so bishop e7 is the main move. Probably d takes is played a lot too. This is the McCutcheon French defense. And after e5, black has to play h6. And normally white doesn't play bishop h4 because now if you do play bishop g3, that black's position's looking pretty good. This bishop is stupid, and these, that's great. So normally white's playing bishop d2, unpinning the knight. You can't play knight here now because you lose a piece. $3. Yay, just a girl. Thank you. Thanks, no doubt. Now white's winning a piece. So usually black takes, and then white gets this big attack against the king, and there's 1,000 moves of theory. But the point is, after e5, you got to play h6. That's, this kind of, your bishop's pinning your knight, your knight's attacked. This is the common, Speaking of Jesse, who rated me, this is a game that I played Jesse in the U.S. Championship before you guys were born. And I lost. No, it was like 90 moves too. It was the most fun I ever had. Flower TV. Now, some of you think I'm terrible at chess, and you're like barely a GM, and if you played Hikaru, he would adopt you. And how are you a GM? Why is your rating so low? Why are you teaching chess? I hate you, etc. And some of you are like, man, Ben Feingold plays 4 hours of chess on Twitch, and he goes 37-0, and he always wins, and when he's down to queen, he wins, and he beat Caruana, and he beat Mamedyarov. He's the greatest player ever. You guys have a real sense of, the opposites. Okay, so I always equate why I'm bad at chess to me being old, and then Karen's like, no, that's not why. Then I equate being good at chess to Groundhog Day. Okay? The things that are good about me in chess is like Bill Murray. Bill Murray is the same day over and over again, so he can learn to play the piano, and he can save people's lives, and, he can do stuff because he's done it a billion times. And one of the reasons I play chess better than you, if I play chess better than you, is because I've played more chess than you and for longer than you, so I've seen everything like Bill Murray. Okay, so basically I'm Bill Murray. Wish my bank account agreed. Okay, so the reason I have all this knowledge is from dozens of years of seeing it over and over and over and over again. Okay, now I just play Blitz and Bullet and I hang all my pieces. But I used to look at Grandmaster games, look at chess with Grandmasters, play Grandmasters, look at chess all day, and read all the chess magazines and books. And then some of that knowledge stayed in there, some of it. So then I remember stuff that's good, I remember stuff that's bad. That's what you have to do to get good at chess, is put work in. If you don't put the work in, and you're like, I'm just going to play the London with white and black, and If my opponent plays G5, I'm going to resign because I can't play the London. Ugh. Okay, if he plays E5, I'll double resign. So like in Blitz and Bullet, I play here, and my opponent's like, say, what? Because they don't know that move. I saw it somewhere. It seemed good. Yeah. I've played Knight D5 also, but that doesn't work out as well. Just so they don't know the opening. Never know anything. Also, etc. And you can do that. You can play what you like, if you like it, as long as it doesn't hang all of your pieces. And you want to have active pieces. You want to do what you want to do, and you don't want to blunder your pieces. When your knight's on H5 and it's not protected, don't let the other guy capture it, because then you might lose. And more than once, Magnus Carlsen has played this with black, losing a famous game to Michael Adams in the Olympiad. Okay, he's trying to get his opponent out of theory. His knight's defended, so he didn't hang it. So that's good. And even though he lost, it's okay, because according to you guys, he's the greatest player ever. So even though he loses and never wins and 10-move draws and Papa John's, you guys don't care. You guys are like greatest player ever. Okay? And then whoever's currently doing anything, they're the greatest player ever for some reason. All right. Now, he's the best player in the world, but greatest player ever is silly. Ridiculous. Okay? Greatest, and as far as calculation and opening prep and Papa John's, you got Fischer, Kasparov. Those guys were pretty good. Okay. Now, it's true, Fischer and Kasparov didn't like Papa John's, but I'm pretty sure Magnus doesn't either. So maybe he is maybe he is the greatest. Maybe. Okay. Someday when Ding mates him in one, he'll see it. So, yeah, like in that game, Magnus's king was walking up the board. God damn. Don't do that against Ding. Ding will checkmate you. All right. Was his king on F5? I think his king was on F5. God damn. Terrible. All right, now what's the gawking rabble saying? We're gawking rabble. Can you analyze? Well, you didn't use a Z, so I don't know. Maybe it wasn't Janis Joplin. Maybe it was Scott Joplin. I don't know. Okay, Cathal Boss is giving some kind of what? Queen E8, Queen D7, Bishop C4. That game doesn't look familiar to me. It's got to be like one of my 1-minute games or something. Looks like a 1-minute game. Yeah. We are just gawking. Stop gawking. I still haven't had a train, and I've been over an hour. Damn. Terrible. Taking knight in Scotch is bad. Yes. That was a good question. You should visit New Orleans. 1,000 centidues. FKA Evil Theo. Good, good. And a lot of emotes were shared. Okay, so the question is, in the Scotch, everybody says knight takes knight is bad. Why is that bad? Good question. Okay, so in this position, black developed a piece and hasn't developed any of his other pieces. So by the general principles of chess, he should develop his other pieces. And obviously the two most common moves are knight f6 and bishop c5, which develop his other pieces. The reason this isn't advantageous to black is there's no reason that it should be. So now your bishop can't go to two natural squares. So this blocks your pawn. This is very passive. And you have nothing developed, and we're already on move 5. So we're on move 5, and these pieces disappeared, and there's nothing else happened. Okay. Conversely, your bishop, which can't get out, my bishop can get out. My other bishop can get out. Your bishops can't get out. My knight can get out. My queen's on an excellent square in the center where it can't be harassed. Now, white's not winning, but knight takes knight doesn't make a lot of sense. Well, like it doesn't help black. It gets rid of his developed piece. And the fact that this knight is attacking this knight and this queen has to stay undefended, that's advantageous to black. If white takes and black takes back, then white has nothing developed, but black has 2 pawns defending his knight. He's not like tied down. This queen is tied down to the knight. So the knight's going to go back, it's going to trade, or we're going to defend it again. So this doesn't lose, it's not terrible, it's not a move that makes a lot of sense. because and it's same in the Sicilian. Same thing. Okay. No grandmaster ever plays knight takes knight. Ever. It's never happened. And then black's got, what's that all about? Yeah, terrible. So it's the same answer. You don't want to do that, and it's not helping you doing it. Your knight's out. Time to move something else. That's a very hard concept for a lower rated player. And if you've learned nothing else today, and you haven't, lower rated players love attacking things. Oh, they love it. Ooh, they love that more than winning. If I was like, you can attack the guy's knight or I'll give you $1 million, they're like, wow, if I take the $1 million, I won't be attacking his knight. Okay. So for example, I'll make up a position because I like doing that. All right. Now, the most nonsensical positional move is E5. It weakens everything. You just played E6. You haven't developed any pieces yet, but E5 attacks something. And you're like, oh, that's better. Grandmasters like to capture things, and then they're free. So after here, a grandmaster's like, oh, I captured a bishop. Let me capture something else. Okay. Oh no, yeah. I'm capturing. This is great. Okay. Grandmasters love capturing stuff. Oh man, we love it. Oh, more capturing. Okay. Ooh, look at that. $3, Leo. Okay. And then after here, they're like, no, he captured something. Let me capture that. Okay. Capturing things is good. Attacking things, it might be good, but there has to be some other reason why you're doing it. It can't just be you like attacking things. And one position that I show my students is this one. This position that I made up. I'm like, you're white, it's your move. I've never had a student suggest knight f3 or d4. Even if they play knight f3 or d4 on move 1 in this position. Here they don't. Here, the only moves that are suggested are e4, and if I'm like, okay, suggest another move, knight c3. And then that's it. There's no other move can be played. There's no other move. If they have to play a4, knight a3, they will, but they're not going to play that. They're not going to play knight f3 or d4. They have to attack the queen. I don't know why they have to do it. They have to do it. It has to be done. Not sure why exactly. They just love attacking things. And if the queen's badly placed and it's not trapped, attacking it's okay, but not attacking it's okay too. You don't have to attack the queen just because you legally can do so. Although a lot of you like doing that. And you enjoy that as much as taking something. Terrible. By the way, lower rated players, they say, here I attacked the queen. I'm like, that's taking the queen. If you think attack and taking are the same thing, that makes chess harder to explain to you. Yeah, attacking is threatening to take it. Taking it's actually taking it. Taking it's good. Threatening to take it, maybe a little. That's a very complicated Simpsons reference you'll never get. New chess piece. Why would anyone play g3 when there's knight f3? What? I'm very novice. How to punish white for kingside castling against the king's Indian or Pierce. I'm told that's a mistake. No, that's normal. If black plays the king's Indian, it's normal to castle kingside. If black plays the Pierce, it's normal to castle kingside. You can't punish it. It's just castling is usually good. Castling not only makes your king safe, but almost as important, if not more important, is your rook isn't trapped on the side. Right. And you can't punish people when they make normal moves. You punish them when they hang all their pieces. You punish them when they don't develop their pieces. Then you punish them. You don't punish them because your friend told you that that's not good. There's no punishing. Okay, now in this position, if my opponent plays knight e5, I'm going to punish him. If my opponent plays knight takes d4, I'm going to punish him. Okay, if he plays g5, I'm going to punish him. But, you know, if they just make normal moves, like d5, it's just chess. $3 again. Castle and avoid a hassle. Right. Now, that's the problem a lot of lower-rated players have, is they have a compulsion to do something. Okay? And that something isn't necessarily something good. $3 again. Thanks, Irish Kong. Here's what I mean by something. If I played here, I did something. My knight was bad and now it's good. But for you guys, doing something means super aggressive. If you want to play super aggressive, fine, but develop your pieces first in castle and then play super aggressive. Don't play super aggressive on move 1. Okay, play some developing moves, get your pieces active, and then play aggressive. Not because that's just you like to play aggressive. Now, again, not everybody is playing to win every game. Magnus, Nakamura, Dubov, Geary, well, not Geary. They want to win every game. Okay, Geary maybe draw most of the games. Okay, you guys might not want to win every game. You guys might want to sack a knight for 4 pawns and try to get some queens because you're playing chess for enjoyment and you enjoy sacking pieces and you know your coach says it's bad and your teacher says it's bad and the grandmasters in the corner are laughing at you and you've just entered PogChamps for the 2nd time, but you're not playing chess professionally. You're just, you want to play some kind of chess you want to play. And if you lose, you lose. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's sort of the way that I play on the stream. And the fact that I'm 1,000 points higher rated than most of my opponents means I can basically do anything and win anyway. And if I was playing somebody my own rating, and I was like, ooh, I'm going to sack a queen, and I'm going to walk my king up the board, and I'm going to say Papa John's a lot, then I'd probably lose. So if you don't mind losing, you can do whatever you want. If you want to improve your game and have your rating go up, it might be less fun. The fun is looking at your rating going up. The chess games themselves might not be as fun. 200 centidues. Obviously, when you look at Morphy's games and he sacks all his pieces and he wins, you're like, I want to do that. Well, Morphy calculates better than you do. So he understands king safety better than you do. So you can't do that. If you do, you're going to lose a lot because you won't have any pieces left. So don't give your pieces away. This is a big problem people have, is they use sentences like, I'm only down a knight. When you're only down a knight, that's when Magnus uses sentences like, I resign because I'm down a knight. And you guys are like, well, I lost a pawn or two, so what? Okay, you can't lose anything. You can sacrifice and be wrong. Maybe you'll be right sometimes. But you can't blunder a knight and go, that's okay. Now, that's what I do because that's the right attitude for playing the rest of the game. It's not the right attitude for analyzing the game and trying to get better at chess. If you don't think losing a knight is bad and you do it every game and you're like, I've done nothing wrong, 200 centidues, Troy Haskin. You're not going to get better at chess. You can't lose anything ever. Never. Not never, not ever. Roar. Now, I'll show you a couple of famous games that I've shown before so you can understand what I'm talking about. Just like the things that I've been saying. Okay, so this is obviously Steinitz von Bartoleben. Notice white has a nice center, and one of the things I've told you on stream before is when the king is on e1 and the guy plays c3, d4, you take it and you check. And when the king is castled, you play bishop b6. We've talked about this. Okay, so you take and check. And in this position, white's sacrificing a pawn, so black should take it. Okay, if you're not taking sacrificed pawns, you're not going to win any pawns. And black played here, which is not a good move. And the reason it's not a good move is I'm castling first. So I have pressure. And with your king on e8, you can't have your king on e8. I'm going to play rook e1 check. If you play bishop takes, I'll get bishop a3. You'll never castle. Your bishop's getting attacked here. So that's why you don't play d5 in this position. You're opening the center and then I castle. And you can take these things, but your king is here and you're going to get in a lot of trouble. You're going to be losing. And black played bishop e6 because his knight's hanging. Okay, he has to do something. And these moves are going to have his king get in trouble. And now he figured he could castle. And in this position, white keeps getting all of his pieces out. Get all of your pieces out. And the next move is also a mistake. He should play queen d7. He played here. The reason it's a mistake is when I trade everything, you're not ready to castle. Takes, 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 takes. And I play rook e1. If it was black's move here, black would castle, and black's probably slightly better. But after here, black's losing. Another train. Seats boy 86, 1,000 centidues. Now, as soon as black castles, black is fine. And that's another thing that we could talk about for an hour, because I used to get paid by the hour. We've talked about this on stream several times. When Magnus is playing Nakamura and the engine says +8, that's because one of them missed something. And they're like, oh, dang, that's +8. When you guys are playing and you're both around 1,200 or 1,100 or 1,500 or 900, and it says +8, that's because you're up a rook and a knight. That means every move you make is +8. If Nakamura is playing Carlsen and it says +8, and Nakamura has one move that's +8, and neither player sees it, and you don't see it, but your engine sees it. So you're typing +8, this move, I have spoken, when it's your engine. And Naka's got 12 seconds left, and he makes some normal looking move, and now it says equal, and now you're like, roar, I'm mad. Why didn't he play +8? I saw everything. Okay. In those positions, somebody made a mistake, they missed a move, and somebody's winning. Sometimes you don't see it. This position, white has a great position unless black castles. And you have to realize that. It's hard for you to realize that because you look at the position and you see equal material, you see an isolated pawn, black has no pawn weaknesses, and you're like, why is white better? White's better because black didn't castle. If black never castles, we're going to triple up on the bubble up. Okay, so in this position, white wants to play rook e5, queen e2, rook e1, so black played f6, which you should never do. That's actually the engine move. Thanks to Basic Practigan, McJurgle, Smarty715. Thanks to everybody. Now white threatened checkmate, and black defended it. Yay, nose power 51. Okay, now in this position, white made a mistake. White's got to put the pressure on, so white should play either d5 or play rook a d1 and then d5, but he played rook a c1. That was Steinitz's only mistake in the game. Okay, and in this position, black can play king f7, breaking the pin, and the engine says it's about equal. And the reason is, if you do this fork, then knight d5 saves the day. And the rooks come into the center, and there's no Papa John's because it was 1895. Okay, instead, black played c6. And again, players 100 years ago, 200 years ago, didn't have a great sense of danger. White has all of his pieces out, and he's pinning the knight, and black hasn't castled. That's very scary. So black should be like getting out of there, get his king out of there. But instead he played c6. White played a very famous move here, which I'm sure you all know, and you will now say in the chat. B-dub, 500 centidues. Good, good. Anybody? Anyone? D5 is correct. Wait, somebody with a tier 3? Nose power tier 3. God damn. Okay, D5 is correct. It's called a clearance sacrifice, so the knight can get in there. Remember knight f5? You can't take with the queen because you get mated. So you take knight here. Now, white's threatening knight f5, which wins immediately. Then resigns. So king f7, knight e6, threatening rook c7, queen g4, threatening queen g7, knight g5 check, threatening the queen, always making a threat. And now the very famous rook takes e7 check, and then check, and then check, and then check, and then black resigned. And we've seen this many, many times on the stream. You can analyze the game. You can use an engine. What you should do is make moves for black that weren't made and be like, well, why doesn't this work? Then the engine's like mate and 5, and you're like, damn, leave me alone. Okay, and that's one of the most brilliant games ever. And the only thing white did wrong was rook a c1, and black played c6. The rest of the game was good. And the opening, black played d5, which wasn't great. Bishop e6 wasn't great. And so he made 2 mistakes and was black, so he was losing. And then white gave him a reprieve with rook a c1, but he didn't take it. And obviously, you guys all know this game. Yeah, well, the game ended, so queen takes e7. I think you mean rook takes. Yeah. All right. Now, in this game, black's king was on e8 for a long time, which isn't good, and black's rook on a8 never moved, which also isn't good. White got all of his pieces active, and he castled. That is good. Okay? So you want to get all your pieces out in castle. A lot of you guys don't do that. Okay? And obviously, in the opera game, it's the same. In the opera game, the other famous game that you guys memorized, what's funny is knight f6 is the losing move. If black plays queen e7 or queen f6, probably not losing, just worse. But now he's losing. Now the engine's like plus a lot. Because you got 2 pawns attacked. You can't, Okay, but the point of the story is, and knight c3 is not great, and b5 is terrible. Okay. The point is, in this position, this is all good. Everything's good. The king is castled. Your knights are all pinned. And you got a knight that's pinned. You got another knight that's pinned. And your queen's blocking your bishop. And your king hasn't castled. And if you do castle, it has no defense. So you get mated. You got nothing. So this is a very bad position for black because there's no activity. You got to have activity. If you say, I'm up a piece, look at me. And I'm like, that piece can't move. That piece can't move. That piece can't move. This piece can go to g8. That's your extra piece? That's what you're telling me? The answer is fries. Yay, 100 cent to do's. McJurgle, 1 cent to do. Liam. All right. And then the game concluded here, or not here, rook d8. This is the only piece that's not any good. So he sacrifices this one and goes here. And the famous mate that you all know, queen b8 check and mate. Okay, and black set up for the next game. So black had some kudos going for him also. The point is, black develops nothing, doesn't castle. White develops everything and attacks. And you have to have piece activity. If you have piece activity, that makes up for a lot of pawn deficits, pawn structure weaknesses, and you can beat anybody if your pieces are good and your opponent's pieces aren't doing anything. You got to get your pieces out. Now, one thing I do a lot is like, well, just to show you, like this is the end game part of the, So we'll just have some boring position. In fact, we'll give everybody a lift. Otherwise, you guys will be like, what about mate? And I'll be like, leave me alone. All right. So we'll give each side a rook. All right. In fact, let's put this here. And then we'll make it black to move. All right, so in this position, black's pretty mad because everything is the same, but this rook got to the 7th. If we put the rook here and put this rook here, then white's mad. Now, I don't know what Carlsen would do. I would really, 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 really not want to go here. And probably I would not. The engine, which is thinking on depth 25, says this is the best move, but it doesn't like black's position. And a strong grandmaster might just give up a pawn and they get the rook active and try to draw that way. They definitely don't want to. Now, I should make this easier. I made it really tough on myself. So, let's see. Clear board is wrong. What do I want to do? Okay, that's what I want to do. And there we go. Yeah. I'm gonna make this even easier. I'm not setting a good example here. I'm the worst. Whatever you guys did, thanks. All right. Now I feel pretty. Oh, so pretty. All right, here we go. There we go. Good, good. 500 centidues, Freddie Potzer. Thank you, Freddie Potzer. Level 4. All right. Now in this position, the engine plays rook a8. I am not playing rook a8, and a lot of grandmasters aren't playing rook a8. Okay, rook a8, I don't like it. I would rather activate my rook and lose this pawn than play here and just play the rest of the game. You know, because if white does this and ends up winning my pawn, I'm going to lose. If white wins my pawn in some position like this, then I expect it's going to be a draw. Corbloss subscribed. Hooray. Do you have any rhymes? Yes, castle and avoid a hassle. The more you pay, the more you learn. That doesn't rhyme, but use that one anyway, Jonathan. See here, I figure I'm going to draw. And here, I figure I'm not too happy. Maybe I'll draw anyway. I don't like the fact that I can't do anything. So I'm not going to have this inactive rook. I got to have active pieces. I have to do it. I must be active. Now here's a good example, since the engine didn't like my example. The engine told me I suck. Yeah, I don't agree with the engine, which is rare. Here's a better example. What happened? McChurgle earned a badge. 500 centidues from Basic Pract. Hooray! McChurgle 502 centidues. No more rhymes, I mean it. Does anybody have a peanut? All right, we'll give him a knight. All right. Okay, so your knight's not good. My king is great. Your king is terrible. And we'll make it white to move. Okay, white to move. The engine says white's winning. And you're not going to guess the engine move. God damn. I wonder if Magnus would play the engine move here. Wow. Wow. That's unbelievable. So the point of me showing you this wasn't so I would be amazed, but I am amazed. The point was, I don't know who's better here, probably white. Now I know who's better because the engine told me. But the point is, I have a good king and your king sucks. If I put the white king here and the black king here, black has a better king and is up a knight. It's like plus 30. 300 centidues, Pinky Jim. Yeah, this is unbelievable. A4 is by far the best move. I don't understand why. It's plus 4, and these moves are like plus 1. This is plus 1, and this is plus 4? Now, if king takes b7, king f8 is plus 1. If, which is what it says, that means after here, I'm not taking these pawns. I'm taking any pawn but the b pawn. Wow. Or a5, also good. Plus 10, Jesus Christ. Man, that's unbelievable that a4 is so good. That wasn't the point of the study. The point was, I have a good king, you have a bad king. With your extra knight, I still win. What if my knight's here and it's black's move here? Now it says black's much better. White's move, it says it's a draw. It prefers white. With white to move here, and this knight here. That just shows you how important king position is in the endgame. You guys don't move your king up in the ending. The only excuse is you're playing me. If you're playing other people, move your king up in the endgame. Now, when I was, thanks for the 100 centimeters, McJurgle. When I was, trying to learn is like the king can't get in there. How did he get this position? That's funny. When I was looking at the kids' games from the elementary tournament last weekend with Mike Klein, he was telling me that some IM or GM or FM told him the king is worth 4 in the end game. Move that king up. Can't capture the king, but it's that's how much it's worth. All right. Well, if I have a king and you don't have a king, if mine's worth 4 and yours is worth 3, that's about what the engine is saying. Yeah. Bam, king G6. It's a scholastic tournament trying to learn, so that position can happen. 270. What's that say? 278. Thanks, McJurgle. Confusing the audience. Right. You need to move your king up in the ending, and you need to not move your king up in the opening. But you need to move your king up in the ending. Freddie Potzer, 500 centidues. You got to move your king up in the ending. You got to do it. Do it. Also, you want advanced pawns. You want your pawns to be far up. Then you can make them queens. And obviously, all this stuff that I said earlier today also applies. Seeing what your opponent's going to do, stuff like that. So, I was showing this to Karen a couple of weeks ago. And it's not the breakthrough, although it is. That wasn't the question. Whether it's his nobler. Okay, the question is not what white does. The question is, what does black do? If you have the black pieces here, and it's your move, and you don't know what your opponent wants to do, you could easily end up making the wrong move. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. One of those moves draws, and the other 5 lose. And the only way to find the drawing move isn't to calculate all 6 moves your whole life. The way to find it is to figure out what white wants to do. If you know this position, which you probably do, and you know if it's white's move, that B6 wins, okay? Then if you make a move that allows B6, you're going to lose, and A6 and C6 lose even worse. So the drawing move for black, which I've already said on stream before, is B6. And the reason you're playing B6 has to do with either you know the position, you have the knowledge, you've already watched my streams, you learned it on your own, whatever, you play B6. You've seen this position. Or you calculated, if I go here, I'm calculating this, I'm calculating this, I'm calculating this. If your calculation's right, that wins. And if I was black, this is the only variation I would calculate. And then I would be, darn, my king's not close enough. So that means if we go back, which I can't do, of course, because I'm in some silly mode, then I guess king F7 draws in this position. I don't know. Yeah. King F7 draws because now B6 doesn't win because we take with this pawn and we can catch the pawn. So here B6 does draw, but so does king F7. Okay, although wait, the engine says king. Oh, it thinks that it's black's move. Okay. And now if B6 and white tries to queen, then the king catches the pawn. So that doesn't work. After king e6, after king f7, it's black to move. Black's winning. Yay! Take all the pawns. Stop hanging all your pawns. Yeah, and not seeing what your opponent wants to do, not figuring out what trick they're making. That's a very important part of getting better at chess. Is not missing your opponent's best moves. And when I worked with Gregory Kaidanov in 1992 and 1993, that's a lot of the lessons we had were, what does your opponent want to do and how are you going to stop it? And if you're good at that, then you don't lose very often because your opponent's never surprising you. Grandmasters are doing that all the time. We're more worried about our opponent beating us than our own, nonsense that we're doing. So, not saying we play defensively, but I'm not saying we're not playing defensively. I'm just saying that a lot of lower rated players just don't play defensively at all. They're like, I missed that. I missed that. And I'm like, well, look for your opponent's threats for a few seconds. And they're like, nah, I don't want to do that. Okay? And if you watch a lot of sports, you'll see that. Especially in the youth. They don't want to defend. They want to play aggressive. They don't want to be good at defense. Okay? But it's the only reason Marcus Smart is in the league. Okay? It's not for his offense. It's for his defense. Okay? If you're good at defense, that's a special skill in every sport. Because most people aren't good at defense. They're good at offense. They're good at shooting. That's why they play basketball. Okay? Gotta be good at shooting. I'm from Detroit. I'm good at shooting. Not necessarily basketball, but I'm from Detroit. So you gotta watch it. When Bart went into military school on The Simpsons, the drill sergeant said, well, you're from a city. He says, you're from public school, so I assume you're familiar with small firearms, so let's step it up a notch. And then Bart liked that. Yeah, he's from public school. Also, etc. All right, so I've waxed idiotic long enough. Let's answer some real questions in the chat instead of like, I think Morphe would give Tall some of his women's shoes. I don't care about that. Yeah, Exclam merch is correct. That's right. And if you watch the pool player, I also used to be a pool player. I wasn't any good, but I knew some good players. And I've watched The Hustler many times. We have a pool table. And I've watched snooker when I lived in Europe. And three cushion billiards. And I know a lot about pool. But anyway, the point is, when Minnesota Fats is playing Paul Newman, they're playing straight pool. And on the break, he plays, the break shot where it's safe. And he says, didn't leave you much, did I, Fats? And Jacob Leeson looks at the table, he says, you left enough. And then he runs the table, of course. It's a movie, so. But yeah, you got to play safe a lot. And again, if somebody's playing safe and they're doing a good job of it, they're probably really good. So you got to go. I mean, I'm pool, not in chess. In pool, though, then, Yeah, the Pistons were a good defensive team. San Antonio, now they're old and terrible. Terrible. Yeah. Some people think LeBron James is a good defensive player. It's true. It's true. It's funny when Magnus was sacking all his pieces today after Hikaru sacked all his pieces. Magnus' sacrifices were somewhat defensive because he was getting mated, but he was already up a queen. So by playing good defense and giving some material away, he didn't get mated, but he still had his queen. How should I approach analysis of my own games? One thing you want to do, which low-rated players rarely do, instead of saying, oh, the engine said that, darn, is you should remember, if possible, sometimes not possible, what didn't happen that you thought might happen. And sometimes you're even relieved. Let me give you an example. Okay, you have black, and your opponent plays knight f3. Okay, and you're like, I thought he was going to go here, and there's no way to stop mate. I'm glad he didn't go there. And now, it's still in the stupid mode? God damn it. Okay, and now you got your engine going, and you're like, man, I want to see what the engine says about this. And you play this, and the engine's like, e6, bishop e6, by the way, that's not mate, and you're like, oh. Okay, so you learned a lot from things that didn't happen. Okay, or you thought you were going to get forked, the guy didn't fork you, and you're like, oh. Then you put on the engine's like, that fork doesn't work. Or that fork does work, you're lucky he didn't fork you in that position, you would have lost. Okay, so things that didn't happen in the game, that doesn't mean you didn't look at them. Okay, here's another example. You go here, the guy goes here, and then you castle. And then after you castle, you're like, could I have played bishop f7, then knight g5? Oh, I could, but I didn't see it. But if my opponent goes here, then I'm going to see it. And then your opponent plays knight f6 or e6, and you're like, darn. Now, when the game's over, you can say, could I have played that? The engine says you're winning. You're like, dang, I could have done that. Okay. So when moves don't happen in your games, but you're worried about them during the game, or you considered them but rejected them. For example, in this position, you're thinking about bishop f4, bishop g5, and castles. And you're like, I don't know. So you play one of them. The game ends, you go to your engine, and you play the 3 moves, and it says your move is the best, and you're like, yay, I'm the greatest. And it turns out the engine says, like, this wins by force. And you're like, no, I didn't even see that. That's a joke, I made that up. That could happen. That the moves that you looked at, none of them were good. But just analyzing the game itself and looking at the punitive valuation, that doesn't take into account what you saw and or what your opponent saw. If you analyze the game with your opponent afterwards, they're going to say a lot of stuff that you didn't think of. Some of their stuff is nonsense, and some of their stuff is not nonsense. And if they say something you didn't see, and the engine's like, good move, and you're like, what? Okay, then you learn from your opponent. So you analyze with your opponent, you go to an engine, you look at things that did happen, that didn't happen, that you thought about, and a lot of times you can let your engine sit there, and instead of it telling you how stupid your move is, you can just look at the number 1 and 2 moves and see if you considered them. So you played h3 in this position, and then you notice, looking at your engine, h3, the engine doesn't know what that move is. And you're like, well, what's your move, engine? And then the engine's like, castles, and mine says queen e2, and queen d3, I need a new engine. Okay, so you can use your engine for a lot of stuff, and you can use your opponent to see what they were thinking, and even your friends, even if they're not as good as you. You show your game to your friends, you make a stream, and your friend's like, why didn't you play this move? And it turns out that move's really good. And you're like, oh, okay. Or it turns out that move hangs a queen, and you're like, dude, that hangs a queen, and then you feel better about yourself because you're like, no, I saw that. So you can analyze games for hours. You can analyze one game for hours and look at every move, everything you thought about, everything your opponent thought about, everything the engine says should have happened that didn't, and try to figure out what's wrong with your play. If you have a chess coach and you tell your chess coach, I played this move, the engine says that move, sometimes your coach will be like me and be like, I don't know, your move's fine. Screw the engine. The other half I'll be like, the engine move is the obvious one. Your move is insane. What's wrong with you? The engine move wins a queen, your move loses a queen. And you're like, oh man, I hate losing a queen, but I like winning a queen. And again, this is the reason people aren't good at chess. The main reason is they're not patient. Okay? You play chess, you lose, and you're like, I hate losing, let me play another game. Okay? Then you're in like PogChamps 0.5. You couldn't even make it to PogChamps 1. You're like, I hate losing, I'm not going to play. Okay? You got to lose 1 million games before you get good. And you got to analyze those games with a coach, with an engine, with your opponent, by yourself. You got to do a lot of chess work and see what you're doing wrong and why you're going to do it again. And I tell this story a lot, but it's a true story. It doesn't sound like a true story because it's so silly, but it's a true story. There were 2 kids in my chess camp in Ann Arbor, and they both lost all their games for 4 days. Okay, they were consistent. And I showed them Scholar's Mate. That way, maybe once in their life, they could beat somebody. So I don't know if I showed them this or both and that. Then I had them play each other, and the player who remembered Scholar's Mate kept Scholar's Mating the second kid. I showed them both. And he's like, mate. And the other kid's like, that's not mate, even though I just showed it to him. He'd look for a minute and go, okay. Then they would repeat the same game over and over again with the kid saying, that's not mate. And the other kid who never won a game in his life, he was winning every game against the kid who couldn't remember. And what would happen was the other kid would do it with black too. So it might go like, I'll just make it up. Okay. And then the kid who always remembered would play mate. His opponent would say, that's not mate, and so forth. So obviously one kid, he liked the scholar's mate. He remembered it. He did it, and he would win sometimes. His opponent, he didn't. I showed it to him. He had it played against him over and over, and he couldn't remember it. It happens. Now, another story I have, I was teaching a 6-year-old girl. Her dad was a philosophy professor at Wayne State University. And I taught her everything. I said, you control the center, and you castle, and you put this and that. And every game, her strategical play was fine. She was playing like this. If you didn't know any better, you would think she's a fine player. Okay, she castled like that. Okay, and what happened was she can't see one move ahead. She can't see where pieces can go. So for example, if I set up this position and I said black to play and win, she can't solve it. If I tell her you can win the queen, she can't solve it. If I say you can check the king, she can't solve it. If I said you can attack the king and the queen at the same time, she can't solve it. And the reason she can't solve it, there's actually a reason. If I played this move and said that's the winning move, that's not enough. She can't see the knight can go here and the knight can go here. If I said put a white pawn on every square the knight can go to, right? Stupid whatever. Okay, then instead of putting white pawns on these squares, it would be like a 12-minute task. And she would do it, but for you immediately see that's a fork. If I tell her it's a fork, she's like, what? I mean, and if her opponent went here, she doesn't know the knight can take the queen now, so she just look and look and look. And maybe if she thought for 5 minutes, she'd take the queen. So she didn't see captures very well, and she didn't see the possibility of where the pieces could go, probably because she was 6 and didn't play a lot of chess. Maybe if she got 7, 8, 9 years old and played hundreds and thousands of games of chess, that would be easier for her. But it wasn't easy. Some people are like that. They don't, things that you see easily, maybe I see easier, maybe Naka sees a lot easier, and maybe there are people who know the rules of chess, and they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, for example, I've done this a lot in kids' classes. God damn, I've done this a lot. You can do this too with kids who are lower rated. This is a fun one to do. If I say white mates in one move, that might be easy for you. But some kids can't even move that far down the diagonal. They sort of get lost. They're moving their queen, and it's just, that queen's going somewhere. I've seen it a lot. I haven't seen it once. I've seen it a lot. And so a lot of the kids, when I say it's mate in one, a very common answer is queen here. Very common. And another common answer is here. So people have different levels. And if they're not at the level that you expect, maybe you can laugh after the lesson, but during the lesson, they don't, And then a lot of kids, when you say this is mate, they're like, what are you talking about? So some things are very hard for people. They think this is mate because it's check. They think this is mate. And I'm like, what can black do? And they're like, I don't know. And I'm like, here. And they're like, oh, all right. Okay. And then I ask them for a stalemate, and that's even worse. Yeah. One funny thing I say to kids this is a funny thing that I say. Let's say your kid's too good for this puzzle. Queen A1, 1 second. I say, show me a move that's not stalemate and not checkmate, but white's not winning. That's a funny puzzle. So it's not checkmate, it's not stalemate, but white's not winning. And obviously there's only one answer. But if you phrase it in a funny way like that, then kids find that funny. No? All right. But I mean, staying on the diagonal is hard for some people. So if you can move your pieces legally, you're already better than a lot of people. A lot of people. Because they can't do it. It's too hard. And by playing chess, hundreds and hundreds of times, which is the main thing I recommend today. That's how you get better, because you get used to things. You're used to moving the pieces a certain way. You're used to certain forks, certain pins, certain skewers, certain castling. You're used to it. If you don't play chess, you forget. You forget how the pieces move. It's hard. Chess is hard. And most of chess is just pattern recognition. So you see the same things over and over and over again, and you want to recognize them before they happen. And if you recognize it, then you can play blitz and bullet chess, because you're not calculating, you're just repeating what you've seen before, right? Now remember, let's see, I won't say his name. A friend of mine is a grandmaster and a doctor. So that really narrows it down, because I think there's 3 on Earth. Anyway, there might be 4. And I said, what's the funniest thing that ever happened to you as a doctor? And the guy said, the guy came in and he said, what's wrong with your leg? This joke isn't going where you think it's going, and it's not a joke. He says, what's wrong with your leg? And the guy said, that's not my leg. Now, obviously you think you know where the joke is going, but you don't. Okay? Because where the joke should be going would be pretty funny. But it's not a joke. The reason he thought it was the guy's leg, and it wasn't the guy's leg, is that, pause for effect, it was his stomach. Now, what was the point of that story other than to be funny? The point is, now this guy's a grandmaster, and he's a doctor. If you're a grandmaster, you see the same thing over and over and over and over again. When you're a doctor, I assume it's the same thing. The guy's got an arm, and if you're like a doctor on Family Guy, then you're like, this is a shoulder, that's an arm, you don't know. But in real life, the guy has a hand, So obviously, if you were a doctor and you were not experienced, and Mikhail Tal came into your establishment, and you're like, I thought you died 20 years ago. And then his hand's a claw, you're like, what? How'd that happen? And he's like, I was born that way, bitch. And you're like, damn, right? You haven't seen it before. Yeah, truth hurts. You don't get the story. The point of the story is, as a chess player, the way we can play chess well is we see the same thing over and over and over and over again. As a doctor, it's pretty similar. As a plumber, it's pretty similar. But if you're a doctor and you think one body part is another body part, you're not going to be a good doctor to that patient. Okay, the patient's probably not too happy to hear that you thought that his stomach was a leg, right? Because the guy was probably unusually shaped. Maybe he's heard that before. So it's hard to do things when you haven't seen them before. If you're playing chess and you see the same position over and over and over again, and the same idea over and over, that's pattern recognition, then you can do a good job. You can't be a good doctor to your patient when you're like, what body part is that? What's happening? You need a better doctor or a better patient. Papa John's. That's all I know about the story. I don't know if the guy was 800 pounds. I assume the guy was very large. That's my assumption. He didn't explain why he thought the guy's stomach was his leg. But that's, yeah. That's, I don't know. What are you going to do? Billy Joel song. Yeah, exactly. And the last thing I'll say in this lecture is you have to be consistent. And what a lot of people do, let's say you're rated 1,300 and you want to be rated 1,700. All right. And you play in a tournament and you beat a 1,700 in round 1. And you're like, I'm the best. I'm getting better at chess. Finally, my lessons are paying off. I beat a 1,700. And then you lose your next 4 games to everybody. Because you can't just stop. You can't play one game well, play the next 10 games badly, then lie to yourself and tell you that the only game that mattered was the game you won. That's how good you are. And that's what most people think. Most people think they're underrated and their proper rating is based on the games that they win. if you don't count the people who died of COVID in the US, then nobody died. That's the Trump kind of logic, right? If you don't count the games you lost and drew, then you won all of your games. Okay? Great players, they try to win and draw all their games and never lose. With, exception of Geary, who tries to draw all his games. So you try to win and draw all of your games, probably win. And when you have 3 losses, 3 draws, and 3 wins, 3 of each, in a 9-round tournament, you don't say, well, I beat 3 1800 players, so I guess I'm 2000 strength. And even though that's a silly thing to say, that's the way you all do it. I've taught you guys. I know you guys. That's what you do. You're like, that guy's 1800. I beat him the last 2 times we played. I'm better than him. I'm better than 1800. And I'm like, see that guy sitting next to him who's 1500? He beat you the last 5 times you played. Oh yeah, that doesn't matter. Terrible. If you only count the games I won, I guess I'm the best player in the world. If you only count the games I lost, I'm worse than you guys. Okay, but we played a lot of games. That's what happened. So you want to be more consistent when you play and blunder less and play the same level every game. Super GMs, for the most part, play the same level every game. You guys confuse me. I've played guys rated 1700. This is in slow tournament chess. The first 30 moves, they play just as well as I do. And the engine would say their moves are fine. They understand chess. They did nothing stupid. They didn't lose material. Time management's okay. Very reasonable. With correct play, it's a draw. And then between moves 30 and 40, somebody else inhabited their body. Okay, the worst player who ever lived. So they play 2500 level for 30 moves. The next 10 moves, they play like 300 level. And I'm like, where'd that guy go? And it happens a lot. People start to not, their brain don't worky. They're good. Then they're like, eh. Now, you don't want your doctor or the guy who's flying your plane to do a good job and then go, that's enough. I'm the greatest pilot in the world the first 2 hours of the flight. The last hour of the flight, I don't know how to fly a plane. And a lot of people play chess like that. Their level goes down. They can't keep it up. There's some psychological problem. There's a mental issue. They're tired. Whatever it is. Okay, you got to stop that. If you're playing 2500 the first 30 moves, play 2500 the next 30 moves. If you have the ability to play well, you have to get rid of your ability to play badly. Get rid of that. Throw that out the door. Okay? And it's weird when I see that, but I'm so used to it that I'm not worried when I'm playing somebody lower rated. It's a tournament game, it's slow chess, and I'm not better ever. I'm like, well, I guess I move 35, they're going to blunder. I guess I move 40, they're going to blunder. And at some point, they prove their rating. And I'm like, man, that guy played great. I don't know what happened. And occasionally, when I play somebody much lower rated than me, I beat them without any problem. But sometimes I don't. And I'm like, why is that guy low rated? He's playing great. He understands everything. Then he's like, no, I don't understand anything. Let me show you. I'm like, dude, you played perfect tactics, 30 moves. The next 10 moves, you made just all blunders. You hung everything. And they're always like, yeah, that's what I do. You got to know you do that and not do that. You can't be doing that. You got to play better as the game goes on. You got to try harder. And that's how you're able to beat higher rated players is you don't give up or you're not satisfied with your play. You're actually trying harder. Mr. Josko subscribed. Well, that's possible also. Grandmaster Gowrie sounds like me. This isn't making you better. This is supposed to make your opponents better. Let's party. Leonard Skinner. Man, the truth hurts. That's right. Chess is like a plane. Yeah, and then I lose again. That's right. Anyway, it's been 2 hours somehow, and I waxed idiotic for a long time. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Now, let me explain tomorrow to you. It's Tuesday, so that means Spencer's teaching a class at 7. You can sign up. This will have the wrong information, but it has the right link at the end. So ignore the first 75 paragraphs. Then that link at the end, do that. Spencer's having a class tomorrow. on Unusual Sicilians at 7. Fredo and. Okay, and then at 8 o'clock tomorrow, I'll have my stream 8 to 11. Thanks, Xenoid. And from 9 to 11, I'll be on Chess TV, so we'll have a lot of viewers. So I'll see you tomorrow at 8. If you want to go to Spencer's class tomorrow, that's at 7. And most importantly,